You walk up to the first tee, you take that same swing you have taken for 40 years, and you watch the ball land 30 yards shorter than it used to. You are not swinging worse. I promise you that. You are swinging the wrong tool, and nobody selling you clubs wants to say it out loud. Here is the truth I wish someone had handed me a decade ago. The right set of irons can give a senior golfer back 20, sometimes 30 yards of carry and cut your dispersion in half without changing one thing about your swing. I found that out the hard way. After years of blaming my aging body for a problem that lived entirely inside my golf bag. And by the end of this, I am going to tell you about a design principle first patented in 1966 by a Boeing engineer named Karsten Solheim. A principle almost every senior ignores that quietly explains why 5 specific irons in 2025 outperform everything else for players like us. This works whether you play twice a week or twice a month, whether you shoot in the 80s or you are just happy to finish the round. I remember the exact moment it hit me. It was a cold Tuesday morning at my home course, the 9th hole, a par 3 over water. I hit what felt like the purest 7-iron of my life. Flush, dead center, and the ball splashed down 10 feet short of the bank. My buddy Ray, 72 years old, pulled out a club, made a lazy little swing, and flew the green. Same hole. I stood there feeling old and finished. I was neither. I was just stubborn, and I was still playing the same forged blades I bought back when I had the swing speed of a much younger man. So let me tell you what I learned, because it saved my game, and it saved me from wasting hundreds of dollars on the wrong upgrades. For most of my life, I believed a good player plays a hard club. That was the code. Real golfers swung thin little blades with tiny sweet spots, and the game improvement clubs were for beginners and hackers. I carried that belief like a badge. I paid more money for less forgiveness, and I called it pride. Here is what nobody explained to me. A golf ball does not care about your ego. It responds to physics. And the physics of an aging golf swing are simple and unforgiving. Somewhere in our 50s and 60s, most of us lose swing speed. The research is consistent on this. Studies of amateur golfers show clubhead speed dropping steadily with age, and by the time a man reaches his late 60s, his driver swing speed often sits somewhere between 75 and 85 miles an hour, down from the 95 or 100 he had in his prime. With the irons, it is the same story, just smaller numbers. And here's the part that stings. When your swing speed drops, 2 things happen to your ball flight, and both of them cost you distance. First, your launch angle gets too low. You cannot get the ball up in the air the way you used to, so it never carries. Second, your spin numbers fall apart, so the ball that does get up drops out of the sky like a wounded duck instead of gliding forward. Those thin, beautiful blades I was so proud of were designed for a man who swings fast enough to compress the ball and launch it himself. I was not that man anymore. I had not been for years. So I was fighting my equipment on every single swing, and I thought the problem was me. But once I understood that, a bigger question opened up. If the clubs were the problem, what exactly makes one iron right for a slower swing and another one wrong? Because you cannot fix what you cannot name. And that is where the story gets interesting, because the answer goes back almost 60 years to a man tinkering in his garage. Karsten Solheim was an engineer. He worked for General Electric and later Boeing, and he did not even pick up a golf club until he was in his 40s. When he did, he was frustrated. The same way you and I get frustrated by how unforgiving the clubs of that era were. Missed the center by a hair and the ball scattered, so he did what engineers do. He asked why. And he figured out that if you took the weight out of the middle of the club head and pushed it out to the edges, to the perimeter, the club would resist twisting when you missed the center. A mishit would still fly straighter and truer. He called it perimeter weighting. He first made his name with a putter he designed in his garage, and when he tapped the ball, it made a pinging sound, so he named the company Ping. That was the 1960s. He patented his ideas, including the investment cast, cavity back iron, and by 1982, he released an iron called the Ping I-2 that changed golf forever. It had a cavity carved out of the back and the weight distributed around the edges, and ordinary golfers suddenly found they could hit shots that used to be impossible. Now, here is what took me far too long to appreciate. Everything that makes an iron good for a senior today, every single feature, is a descendant of that one idea. Forgiveness on off-center hits, a lower, deeper center of gravity that launches the ball higher without you swinging harder. Weight moved to the perimeter and low in the head so the ball climbs on its own. That is not a beginner gimmick. That is engineering doing the work your body used to do. The tragedy is that for decades, the golf world treated those clubs as lesser, as training wheels, and men my age bought into it. We chased the look of a tour player instead of the results of a smart one. I spent years and a good chunk of money proving I was tough enough to play hard clubs, and all I proved was that I did not understand my own swing. So the moment I let go of that pride, I started asking a completely different question. Not which iron looks the part, but which iron actually gives a slower swing the most help. But before I name them, I have to warn you about the single biggest mistake I see older golfers make, because if you get this one thing wrong, the best iron head in the world will not save you. It is the shaft, not the head, the shaft. For years I played stiff steel shafts because that is what I always played. Steel felt solid. Steel felt like a real club. And every time I swung it, that heavy, stiff steel shaft refused to load and unload the way a slower swing needs it to. A shaft that is too stiff and too heavy for your speed simply will not flex and release its energy into the ball. You are dragging a fence post through the hitting zone and wondering where your distance went. The fix costs you nothing but a little humility. A lighter graphite shaft in a regular or senior flex matched to your actual swing speed. When I finally switched, on the same iron head, I picked up club speed just from the lighter weight, and the extra flex launched the ball higher and longer. I am talking about 10 to 15 yards on a 7-iron with no change to my swing whatsoever. I felt robbed. I had left that distance on the table for a decade because I thought graphite was for people who could not handle steel. So write this down before we go one step further. Whatever iron you choose, get it fit with a shaft that matches your speed. And if you are a senior with a slower swing, that almost always means lighter and more flexible than what you are playing now. The head gets the attention, the shaft does the quiet work. Now, therefore, with all of that understood, let me finally tell you about the irons themselves, the 5 that stand above the rest for players like us, and why each one earns its place. The first is the club that started my whole recovery, the Ping G Series Game Improvement Iron, the current model in that G line. It is the direct grandchild of that 1982 Ping I-2, and Karsten Solheim's fingerprints are all over it. The head is larger, the sole is wider, and the center of gravity sits low and deep so the ball launches high and lands soft even when your swing is slowed. What sold me was the forgiveness on the toe and heel. On the days my timing is off, and at my age there are plenty of those, the ball still finds the green instead of the trees. Ping builds these to be fit to you, and if you tell them your swing speed honestly, they will put you in the right shaft. This is the safe, dependable, no drama choice, and there is no shame in it. There is only lower scores. But dependable was not enough for me once I got a taste of what modern engineering could do, because the second iron on my list does something that felt, honestly, like cheating the first time I hit it. That is the Callaway iron built with what they call artificial intelligence face design, the ones in their Game Improvement and Big Bertha families. Here is the idea, and it is genuinely new in the last few years. Callaway ran computer simulations, thousands upon thousands of them, to design the face so that it flexes differently in different spots. A traditional iron face has one sweet spot, and everywhere else you lose ball speed. These faces are engineered so that even the shots you catch low on the face, the fat ones, the thin ones, the heel, and the toe, come off with more speed and better spin than they have any right to. For a senior who does not strike the ball dead center every time, and none of us do, that means your bad shots fly almost as far as your good ones. The gap between your best and your worst shrinks. And a smaller gap is what actually lowers your score, because golf punishes your misses far more than it rewards your gems. Now, I want to stop right here because I know exactly what some of you are thinking. You are thinking this is fine for a man with money to burn and time to go get fitted at some fancy studio, but you already have your clubs, you are on a fixed income, and you are not about to drop a fortune replacing a whole set. I hear you. I was you. So let me speak directly to you for a minute, because the next part is specifically for the golfer who does not want to buy a single new thing, and that question led me to a handful of specific clubs that are, right now, in 2025, the best tools a senior golfer can put in the bag. If you want to go deeper on everything I just covered, including the full breakdown of how to match equipment to your actual swing numbers and not the number on your ego, I put it all together in a book called First Foundations. It is part of a series that includes Hidden Leverage and the Complete System, and it covers the exact framework I used to rebuild my bag from scratch after years of playing the wrong tools. Everything in this video scratches the surface of what is inside those pages. You can find the details in the description below. Now, with that foundation in place, let us get back to those 5 irons and exactly why each one earns its spot in your bag. You can test almost everything I am telling you today with the clubs already in your bag this weekend for free. Here is how. Take your 7-iron to the range, hit 10 balls the way you normally do. Now, grip down, choke down an inch on the handle, and make a smoother, slower swing at about 80% effort, focusing only on catching the ball clean. Watch what happens. Most seniors, when they stop trying to muscle the ball and let the club do the work, actually hit it higher and just as far with far less scatter. That tells you something crucial. It tells you your distance problem is a launch and contact problem, not a strength problem, and that is the exact problem the right iron solves. Here is the second free test. Go find the felt tip marker in your kitchen drawer, the dry erase kind, and paint the face of your iron. Hit 5 balls. Look at where the marks land. If they are scattered low on the face or out toward the toe, that is proof in your own hand that a more forgiving head with a lower center of gravity would give you backyards you are throwing away right now. You do not need to buy anything to run that experiment. You just need to look honestly at the evidence your own swing leaves behind. And when you finally do decide to upgrade, you will know precisely what you are shopping for instead of trusting a salesman half your age. That little test is what convinced me I was not crazy and I was not washed up. The marks never lied. Now, back to the 5, because the third one solves a problem the first 2 do not fully address. The third iron is the hollow body or player's distance style iron, and the standout here comes from TaylorMade in their distance iron line. Now, the word distance in the name is not marketing fluff, and here is the engineering behind it. These irons are hollow inside, like a fairway wood, with a thin face that flexes and a lot of the weight packed low with dense tungsten. What that does is jump the ball off the face with more speed while still launching it high. For a senior who wants to keep a slightly cleaner, less bulky look at a dress but still needs help, this is the sweet spot. It hides its forgiveness inside a shape that does not scream game improvement. My friend Ray, the one who embarrassed me on that par 3, plays a hollow body set, and now I understand why his lazy little swing flew the green while my full effort came up short. He was not stronger than me, his club was smarter than mine, but there is a catch with these distance irons that nobody warns you about, and it leads straight into the 4th club. These strong, hot-faced irons often have their lofts cranked way down. A club stamped 7 might have the loft of an old 5. That gives you distance, yes, but it can make the ball fly too low and land too hot to hold a green, especially with a slower swing that already struggles to generate height and spin. So the 4th iron is the answer for the golfer who tried a hot distance iron and found the ball would not stop on the green. That 4th choice is the Super Game Improvement Iron from Cleveland, their extra large launch model. This is the most forgiving, highest launching, easiest iron to hit that I have ever put in play, and I say that with zero embarrassment now. It has an enormous sweet spot, a wide sole that glides through the turf instead of digging, and weighting designed to get the ball airborne no matter how slow you swing. If you have ever chunked an iron and watched it dribble 20 yards, this club is built specifically to rescue you from that misery. The wide sole bounces off the ground instead of burying into it. For the senior whose contact has gotten inconsistent, and again that is most of us, this is the club that keeps you in the game and keeps golf fun instead of humiliating. And the fifth iron is for the player who has kept their swing speed up, the younger senior, or the lifelong athlete who still turns hard but wants forgiveness without the bulk. That is the Cobra Game Improvement Iron with its forged face and clever internal weighting. It bridges the gap, it gives you the feel of a better player's club with the safety net of modern forgiveness, and it comes at a price that has historically been friendlier than the big two brands. For the golfer who refuses to admit he needs a Super Game Improvement Iron but knows deep down he needs help, this is the graceful compromise. It lets you keep a little pride while quietly getting all the benefits. So there they are. Ping for dependable forgiveness. Callaway for the smart face that saves your mishits. TaylorMade hollow body for distance and a cleaner shape. Cleveland for maximum help and the easiest launch on earth. Cobra for the athletic senior who wants forgiveness without the bulk. Any one of those, fit with the right light graphite shaft, will do more for your game than any lesson, any new glove, any expensive ball. But I promised you at the start something bigger than a shopping list. I promised you a principle that almost every senior ignores. And now that you understand the clubs, this is the piece that ties it all together, and it is the thing I would attach to your bag with a nail if I could. Go back to Karsten Solheim, 1966, in that garage. When he moved the weight to the perimeter, he was not just making a more forgiving club. He was making a club that let a golfer swing easier and still get results. That was the whole point, and it got buried under 60 years of marketing that told us we had to swing harder, buy the pro club, prove our manhood on every tee. The forgotten secret is not any single iron. The forgotten secret is that the entire modern iron was invented so you could stop fighting and start letting the tool do the work. And here is the specific, practical thing I found buried in that idea, the finale I built this whole video around. It comes from how club fitters actually match irons to slower swings, a method rooted in Solheim's original obsession with launch and spin. It is called gapping, and almost no senior does it, but it will change your entire bag for the price of one afternoon. Here is what you do. Most of us carry a long iron we cannot hit, a 3-iron, a 4-iron, sometimes a 5. We keep them out of habit, and every time we pull one out, we hit a low worm burner and lose the hole. Those long irons require exactly the swing speed we no longer have. The gapping principle says this. Take those long irons out of the bag entirely and replace them with what the fitters call hybrids, or higher lofted fairway woods that carry the same yardage but launch far higher with far less effort. The head is designed with the weight low and deep, straight out of Solheim's playbook, so the ball climbs on its own. A well-fit hybrid will carry a slow-swinging senior 10, 15, even 20 yards farther than the long iron it replaces, and it will land soft enough to actually hold the green. Then you build your set from the wedges down, spacing each club so there is a consistent yardage gap between them, usually somewhere around 10 to 15 yards per club, so you always have exactly the right tool for the distance in front of you instead of guessing and forcing shots. That is gapping. It is the quiet method that professional fitters have used for decades. Straight out of the launch and spin thinking, Karsten Solheim started sketching in that garage almost 60 years ago, and it is the single most powerful change a senior can make. It costs you nothing to pull the clubs you cannot hit. It costs very little to add 1 or 2 hybrids, and it does more for your scores than a whole new set of blades ever could. The first time I re-gapped my bag, I took out a 4-iron I'd carried and hated for 15 years, put in a single hybrid, and I stopped losing 2 shots around to that one stubborn club. 2 shots around. Over a season, that is the difference between the man I thought I had become and the man I actually still was. I had been swinging fine the whole time. I was just carrying tools built for a stranger, a faster, younger man who did not exist anymore, and refusing to admit it. That is what this is really about. not spending money, not chasing the newest thing on the shelf. It is about refusing to let a slower swing steal a game you love when the fix was engineered and waiting for you the whole time. Those yards you think age took from you, most of them are still there. They are trapped inside the wrong equipment and the wrong belief, and you can get them back this weekend. You are not a man who blames his body and gives up. You are the kind of person who figures things out, who reads the marks on the club face, who tests before he buys, who refuses to keep paying for problems he can solve with a little knowledge and a little honesty. That is who does the work to understand this, instead of just buying whatever the young man behind the counter points at. So here is what I want you to do for me. Go to the range this weekend, run that marker test on your 7-iron, and then come back and tell me exactly where the marks landed. Toe, heel, low on the face, or dead center. That one detail tells the whole story of your game, and I read every single comment. Leave it below. Tell me where your marks landed and what irons you are playing right now, and I will tell you honestly whether I think you are fighting your equipment the way I was. And if you are done being sold to, done paying more for less, done blaming your age for a problem that lives in your bag, then come along with the rest of us who are recovering the practical knowledge of the golf industry buried under 60 years of marketing. Subscribe and stay, because the next thing I am going to show you is the one wedge setup that saved me $20 a round on lost balls around the green, and it is even simpler than what you learned today. I'm still here because you are. So let me share what waits inside my membership, the Practical Wisdom Circle. This video gave you the overview. In there, I take it deeper, right where we just left off. You can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You belong here with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime.